The day began like any other, quiet and predictable. And that was exactly why Emily Carter didn't expect anything unusual when she sat at her desk in the marketing department of Holden and Gray Consulting. The rain outside tapped lightly against the window, a soft rhythm that usually comforted her during long work hours. She liked calm days, the kind where nothing changed too suddenly. But life has a way of turning without warning, and that turn started with one simple message on her phone. It came from Daniel Brooks, her boss's assistant, someone she trusted and often worked with. His message was short. "Emily, Mr. Holden wants to see you in his private office. Please come now." There was no explanation, no added line, nothing. To prepare her for what waited on the other side of that office door, Emily felt a small wave of nerves, the kind that rises when something feels slightly off. She had worked here for 4 years and had never been called into the private office without a scheduled meeting. Mr. Holden was professional, calm, and ever dramatic or secretive. And Daniel, the one who sent the message, was usually warm, polite, always smiling. But something about that simple text made the air around her feel colder. She stood, gathered the files near her keyboard, and left her desk with steady but uncertain steps. The hallway to Mr. Holden's office was quiet, lined with soft gray carpeting that absorbed sound. Emily's heels hardly made a noise. As she walked, she tried to guess what this meeting could be about. A project update, a new client, maybe a mistake in one of the reports. But none of those possibilities carried the strange heaviness she felt building in her chest. She brushed a hand through her hair, trying to calm herself. She didn't like jumping to conclusions, but the uneasy feeling kept growing. Daniel stood outside the office door when she arrived. He usually greeted her with a friendly grin or a light joke to ease the tension of long workdays. But today, he didn't. His face carried something different, something troubled. His eyes, normally full of energy, looked weighed down. Emily immediately noticed. "Hey," she said softly, waiting for him to explain. But instead of smiling, he looked at the floor for a second before meeting her eyes. "Emily," he said quietly, "before you go in, there's something you should know." Her heart tightened. She didn't move. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Daniel opened his mouth like he wanted to speak. But then he hesitated, as if choosing between two painful options. For a moment, it looked like he was about to tell her everything right there in the hallway. But whatever truth he held seemed too heavy to drop on her so suddenly. He shook his head. "I don't think it's my place to say it," he finally whispered. "You'll understand once you talk to him." Emily felt a shiver move across her skin. Something was very wrong. She could see it in Daniel's eyes: care, worry, and a kind of sadness she didn't expect to see from him. He gently opened the office door for her, and she stepped inside, feeling like she had just entered a room full of quiet secrets. The private office looked dimmer than usual. A tall window filled the far wall, showing the gray sky and the steady rain outside. Mr. Holden, tall and composed, stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets. He wasn't looking at any documents or computer screens. He was simply staring out the window, deep in thought. As if preparing himself for something difficult, Emily waited for him to turn. "You wanted to see me, sir?" she said gently. Mr. Holden didn't speak right away. When he finally turned, the expression on his face surprised her. His usual calm confidence was replaced by something more serious: concern mixed with regret. She had never seen him look like that. "Emily," he said softly, "thank you for coming." Her pulse quickened. "Is something wrong?" Mr. Holden sighed, walked toward her, and leaned lightly against the desk. His voice was lower than usual, careful, almost cautious. "I need to speak with you about something personal." Emily stiffened. "Personal?" Work discussions were always professional here. Personal matters rarely entered the conversation. She felt the weight of the room shift. "Personal?" she echoed. Mr. Holden nodded slowly. "Yes, and I want you to know that this isn't easy for me to say. Daniel and I have talked about it, and we both agreed that you deserve honesty." The mention of Daniel sent another wave of unease through her. Honesty about what? Her hands felt colder, and a quiet fear began to settle under her ribs. Mr. Holden continued, "This concerns your husband." The words hit her like a sudden drop in temperature. She felt her stomach tighten, her mind scrambling to make sense of it. "My husband." She repeated, barely able to process the shift. "Yes," Mr. Holden said gently, "and I wouldn't bring this up unless I believed it was necessary." Emily's heart pounded faster. Our husband of 8 years. They were not perfect, but they were stable, or she believed they were. They had been drifting a little lately, exchanging shorter conversations, quick goodbyes, and tired smiles. But she always blamed it on routine, deadlines, life. Not once did she imagine he could become a reason she would be called into a private meeting. "What exactly does this have to do with Ryan?" she asked, her voice thin but steady. Mr. Holden's eyes softened, and for a moment he looked almost apologetic. "I think you should sit down for this." But Emily didn't sit. She needed to hear it, needed the truth without delay. Mr. Holden exhaled. "Emily, there's something going on that you deserve to know." "Daniel." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "Daniel overheard something involving your husband, something we both felt you shouldn't be kept in." The dark about Emily felt her breath shorten. Daniel overheard something. What could her husband possibly be involved in that would reach her workplace through her boss, of all people? Nothing made sense yet. And then, before Mr. Holden could continue, the door behind her clicked open. She turned to see Daniel stepping. Inside, his face full of the same heavy truth he'd carried earlier in that moment. Standing between two people who looked like they were holding painful information. Emily knew her life was about to change, and she wasn't ready, but the truth was already there, waiting. The silence inside Mr. Holden's office felt thick, almost heavy enough to touch. Emily stood between her boss and Daniel, her heart racing as she tried to understand why both men looked so troubled. She had walked in expecting maybe a work update, a project issue, anything but this. Yet the truth hovered in the air, waiting to break open. Mr. Holden spoke first. His voice was steady but softer than usual. "Emily, I know this is sudden, but what we're about to tell you isn't something we could ignore." Emily felt her breath catch. "Please just say it," she said quietly. Her palms grew warm, but her fingertips felt cold. She didn't want long explanations. She needed clarity. Mr. Holden nodded. "It's about your husband, Ryan." Her chest tightened at the name. She looked quickly at Daniel, searching his face for answers. He glanced down for a moment as if ashamed of what he had to reveal. He said, choosing his words carefully, "Ryan has been coming to this building, and not for work, and not to see you." Emily blinked, thrown off balance. "Coming here? Why would he come here?" she asked. Her voice had a shake in it she couldn't hide. Mr. Holden walked slowly to the side of the desk, as if giving her space. "We didn't know at first. But then Daniel overheard something conversations that involved your husband. And after that, we realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding." Emily swallowed hard. "What conversations?" Daniel stepped forward then. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. "I didn't want to tell you like this," he said, "but I overheard Ryan making plans in the lobby. It wasn't a friendly meeting or a quick stop. It was something he was hiding." Emily felt a small, trembling breath leave her. She didn't want to assume the worst. She wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. Something harmless, something that would make this entire meeting unnecessary. But the way both men looked at her, steady, sympathetic, and serious, told her the truth she feared was close. Mr. Holden continued, "We saw him more than once. He came through the side entrance, usually during lunch hours. And each time he met someone privately, Emily didn't move. Her mind spun, trying to match this version of Ryan with the man she lived with every day. Yes, he had been more distant. Lately, yes, he had seemed distracted, tired, less present. But she had pushed those worries away, told herself that couples go through phases. She never imagined the distance could lead here. Who was he meeting? She whispered. Daniel hesitated, his jaw tightening for a moment. We wanted to confirm before saying anything. We didn't want to cause pain without being sure. Emily nodded, appreciating the care even through her rising panic. And now you're sure. Daniel gave a sad, slow nod. Yes. The room felt colder now. Emily wrapped her arms across her stomach without thinking, holding herself together. Mr. Holden spoke again, gently. Emily, I want you to understand something. We're not judging him, and we're not telling you this to hurt you. We're telling you because you deserve the truth. You work hard, you treat people with kindness, and you don't deserve secrets. Behind your back, Emily listened, her eyes burning. She wasn't crying, but she could feel the sting building. She asked again, more firmly this time. Who was he meeting? Before either man answered, Daniel stepped closer, stopping a respectful distance from her. His voice dropped slightly. He was meeting someone from the building, someone who shouldn't have been meeting him at all. The words hit her like a cold wave. From this building, she said in disbelief. Someone who works here? Daniel nodded reluctantly. Emily pressed a hand to her forehead, feeling a deep ache forming. She didn't know why, but hearing that the person worked in the same company made the betrayal feel sharper. She had always imagined her workplace as a safe, separate world, one built on routine and teamwork. The idea that someone from here was involved with her husband twisted everything together in a painful knot. Why would he do this? Emily whispered, more to herself than to them. No one answered. There was no simple answer to that question. Mr. Holden finally said, sometimes people make choices that have nothing to do with the person they hurt. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Daniel stepped forward slightly. Emily, I didn't want you to find out by accident. I didn't want you to overhear others talking. I thought you deserved honesty from someone who actually cares. She looked at him, really looked at him this time. The warmth in his eyes wasn't pity. It was understanding. He had known for weeks carry this weight, and even though it wasn't his responsibility, he still felt accountable. She saw that now. Emily took a slow breath, trying to steady herself. How long has this been going on? She asked. Daniel answered. At least a few weeks, maybe more. She blinked, struggling to process it. 4 weeks, 6. She replayed conversations at home, the distracted nods, the late returns, the excuses he brushed off lightly. Suddenly, those little moments had new meaning. The room felt smaller now. The walls seemed closer, the lights dimmer, and just as she tried to gather her thoughts, Daniel added, there's something else I think you should know. Mr. Holden shot him a warning glance, but Daniel held steady. Emily turned toward him. Bracing herself for another blow, Daniel swallowed. He wasn't meeting her in open spaces. He was meeting her in the back conference rooms. He tried to keep everything hidden. Emily felt her breath catch. The back conference rooms were rarely used, quiet, tucked away. Just hearing that detail made her chest pull tight. She whispered, he planned this. Neither man corrected her. For a few long seconds, there was only the faint sound of rain tapping against the window. Emily didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. But she felt a deep, sharp sadness settle inside her, a sadness so clean and heavy that she couldn't speak for a moment. Finally, she lifted her head, forcing strength into her voice even though her heart felt unsteady. Thank you, she said, both of you, for telling me she didn't feel okay. But she felt aware. And even though the truth stung deeply, she would rather face it than live in the dark. She didn't know it yet, but everything that came next, every decision, every confrontation, every shift in her life began right here. in this quiet office, surrounded by honesty she never expected. Daniel closed the door behind him, and the soft click echoed in the room like a signal that the truth was finally out in the open. Emily stood frozen, caught between fear and confusion. She didn't know what to expect from him now. She only knew that her world was shifting faster than she could follow. Daniel took a slow step toward her. His face held something she had never seen from him before, deep worry mixed with guilt. "Emily," he began, his voice quiet but clear, "I'm really sorry. I never wanted this to reach you like this." Emily swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight, like her words were stuck behind a wall of shock. "How long have you known Daniel?" she asked. She didn't sound angry. She sounded tired in a way she couldn't hide. Daniel shifted slightly. Hands clasped together as if trying to steady himself. "A few weeks," he admitted. "I kept hoping I was misunderstanding things. I didn't want to believe he would hide something like this from you. And I didn't want to hurt you by telling you before I was sure." Emily listened, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She didn't blame Daniel. She could see that he was struggling too. But pain doesn't wait for explanations. It hits first, questions later. "And you're sure now?" she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "I'm sure." Mr. Holden stepped back, giving them space, but staying close enough to offer support if she needed it. Emily looked straight at Daniel, trying to understand why he seemed personally affected. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked. The question came out sharper than she intended, but she needed to know. Daniel's eyes softened. He hesitated, but only for a moment. "Because I care about you," he said, voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "More than I've ever said out loud." The room stilled. Emily felt her chest tighten not from fear, but from surprise. She had never expected that from Daniel. She always saw him as a kind coworker, someone who made long days feel lighter, someone dependable. But she never imagined he was holding something more private, something deeper. She looked away for a moment, not because she didn't want to hear it, but because too much was happening at once. Her husband's distance, the secret meetings, the quiet lies. And now this sudden honesty from someone she didn't know she mattered to in this way. Daniel continued. "Gently, I never meant to hide it. I just knew you were married, and I respected that. I kept my feelings to myself. But watching you go home every day without knowing what was happening behind your back, it felt wrong. I didn't want you to be in the dark while everyone else saw pieces of the truth." Emily felt a warm ache in her chest. His words didn't feel romantic or inappropriate. They felt sincere, human, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Daniel," she said softly, "I appreciate your honesty, but right now I really need clarity." Daniel nodded immediately. "I understand." She took a breath. "Who was he meeting?" Daniel exchanged a quick glance with Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden gave a small nod silent. "Permission." Daniel looked back at Emily. "Sophie," he said quietly. "The new intern in marketing." The name hit Emily like cold wind. Sophie, young, nervous, polite. Emily remembered sitting next to her once during a meeting. The girl had barely spoken, just offered shy smiles and careful answers. Emily didn't know her well, but the idea that someone she had met, someone who worked in the same building, was the person her husband chose to meet secretly made her stomach turn. Emily took a step back, her hand moving to her chest as if trying to steady the ache building inside. She wasn't angry. She wasn't crying. She was simply overwhelmed by a truth she never expected. "She's so young," Emily whispered. "She barely even knows the company. Why would he? Why her?" She didn't ask out of jealousy. She asked out of confusion, disbelief. Daniel answered gently. "I don't think it's about her. I think it's about him. People sometimes chase something new when they feel lost or restless, but it doesn't make it right." Emily nodded slowly, feeling tears gather but refusing to fall. She didn't want to fall apart in front of them, not yet. Mr. Holden stepped forward, his tone calm and steady. "Emily, you haven't done anything wrong. You're not responsible for his choices. Sometimes people hide their mistakes because they're ashamed, not because the person they hurt deserves it. Emily appreciated his steady presence, but her mind kept replaying the image of her husband walking into their building, quietly slipping into conference rooms with someone else. She turned back to Daniel. "You said you saw him more than once." Daniel nodded. 3 times. Maybe for... I tried to convince myself it was nothing. But each time it was the same pattern. He checked to make sure no one was watching. He didn't stay long, and he always came through the side entrance. Emily's stomach twisted. She had imagined Ryan as stressed, tired, distant because of work. Now she wondered how many times he'd lied with a calm smile. How many nights he said he was running late when he was not. Daniel lowered his voice. "I'm sorry, truly." Emily pressed her hand to her forehead. "I just don't understand why he didn't talk to me. Why he didn't just say he wasn't happy?" Daniel watched her carefully. Sometimes people don't know how to say those things. Or they're afraid of losing something they think they need. Or they want comfort without consequences, Mr. Holden added gently. And sometimes people don't realize what they're risking until they've already crossed the line. The room settled into a quiet that felt heavier than any silence Emily had ever known. She felt like she was standing on the edge of something, an emotional cliff she didn't choose. After a long moment, she spoke. "Thank you both for telling me the truth. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm glad I know." Daniel's expression softened with relief, though concern still filled his eyes. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said quietly. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Emily didn't answer right away. She simply nodded, appreciating his sincerity even through her heartbreak, for the first time. She realized something. The truth didn't only bring pain. It also revealed who truly cared. And as she stood there, trying to steady her heart, she sensed that the hardest part was still ahead, facing her husband, and facing the new truths she hadn't yet dared to feel. The office felt strangely quiet after everything had been said. Emily stood there, feeling the weight of the truth settle deeper inside her chest. She wasn't shaking anymore, but her heart felt heavy, as if it had been carrying too much for too long. The blinds on the window let in thin lines of gray afternoon light. And for a moment, Emily just stared at them, trying to breathe through the chaos unfolding inside her. Mr. Holden stepped forward, careful not to crowd her. "Emily," he said softly, "I know this is overwhelming. You don't have to make any decision right now. Take time, go home early if you need to." Emily nodded but didn't move. Her mind was still trying to understand the pieces of her life that had suddenly shifted. She thought of mornings making coffee with Ryan, evenings sitting side by side on the couch, the familiar routine she believed was safe. Now, those memories felt different, still warm, but touched by a shadow she didn't see before. Daniel stayed quiet, standing a little behind Mr. Holden, as if giving Emily space, but refusing to leave her alone in this moment. She felt his presence, steady and patient. After a long silence, Emily finally spoke. "Thank you, both of you. I know telling me wasn't easy." Mr. Holden gave her a respectful nod. "You deserved honesty." Emily drew a slow breath. "It hurts," she admitted, "but not knowing would have been worse." Her voice trembled only slightly, and Daniel's eyes softened, full of empathy. She looked at him, seeing the quiet support he offered without pushing or expecting anything in return. Mr. Holden walked around the desk and picked up a small stack of papers. "Emily, take a few days off," he said. "Clear your mind. You're one of our best employees, and I want you to take care of yourself." She appreciated the offer, though she wasn't sure what she needed yet. "I'll think about it," she said. Daniel stepped forward then, his voice gentle but sincere. "If you want someone to talk to, or even just sit with, I'm here," he said. "Not because of anything that happened today, but because I care about what happens to you after you leave this office." Emily glanced at him, surprised once again by his openness. She had always noticed his kindness, the way he helped others without being asked. But she never realized how closely he had paid attention to her long hours, her tired smiles, her quiet doubts. She didn't know what to say at first, but then she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Daniel. That means more than you know." For a moment, the three of them stood in a triangle of quiet understanding. Emily wasn't alone. She could feel that now. Even in the middle of heartbreak, she had support. Finally, she walked toward the door. Her steps were slower than usual, but steadier than she expected. She wasn't running away and she wasn't collapsing. She was simply moving forward, carrying both pain and strength in equal measure. Outside the office, the hallway felt colder, the lights brighter. The noise from other departments sounded distant, like she'd stepped into a different world than the one she arrived in earlier that day. She took a deep breath and walked toward her desk to pack her things. As she reached for her bag, her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a message from Ryan. "Hey, where are you? Thought we could have dinner tonight. Maybe try that new place you mentioned." Emily froze for a moment, staring at the words. The message was cheerful, casual, almost affectionate. If she hadn't known the truth, she might have smiled reading it. She might have believed everything was normal. But now she saw it differently, like he was living in two different worlds, trying to keep her in one while creating another behind her back. She didn't reply. Not yet. She needed time to steady her heart before stepping into the conversation that would change everything. Daniel appeared at the end of the hallway, giving her a questioning look, as if checking whether she was okay. Emily gave him a small nod, silently telling him she would manage. He didn't approach, didn't push. He simply offered a gentle, reassuring smile. And that was enough. Emily left the building, stepping into the cool afternoon air. The rain had stopped, but the pavements still shimmered. Clouds drifted slowly above, the kind of sky that looked like it was holding back sunlight. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk, letting the fresh air settle around her. Her mind moved quickly. She thought about Ryan's message, about the conversations they needed to have, about the long night ahead of her. She also thought about the honesty she received today from people who didn't owe her anything but gave her the truth anyway. That alone made her feel less lost. She walked toward her car, each step lighter than she expected. She wasn't healed. She wasn't ready to forgive or confront or decide anything final. But she felt a spark of strength she hadn't felt in a long time. A quiet courage. As she reached the car door, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Ryan. "Everything okay? You're quiet today?" Emily closed her eyes for a moment. Not in pain, but in resolve. Tonight, she would talk to him. She would ask the questions she never wanted to ask, listen to answers she didn't want to hear. She would face him not as someone begging for the truth, but as someone who already knew it. She got into the car, placed her hands on the steering wheel, and breathed deeply. The engine hummed softly when she started it. Familiar sound in an unfamiliar moment. As she drove away, she didn't look back at the building. But she couldn't stop thinking about the people inside, about Mr. Holden's steady support and Daniel's unexpected honesty. Especially Daniel. His quiet confession echoed gently in her mind, not demanding attention, but reminding her that even in the middle of heartbreak, there were still people who cared. Tomorrow, she would face whatever came next. Tonight, she would let the truth settle. And for the first time in a long time, she felt that tomorrow might hold something new, something honest, something healing. The road ahead wasn't clear, but she finally believed she could walk it. And that belief was the beginning of her strength.